Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome to Cloud Skills Show. This is the first episode of Series 2 of Cloud Skills. We had a week off last week for Microsoft Ignite. And if you joined us for Series 1, then you'll have seen all of the fantastic episodes we had, ranging from AI to security to web to languages and frameworks through to student. We had loads and loads of fun in Series 1. So we decided to come back again for the next 12 weeks. And we've got more guests than ever. As you can see this week, we've got absolutely loads of people. There's actually one person even missing on the screen who hopefully we'll get video back for. We've got all of these wonderful guests. Now, we will, it'll take too long to introduce them all now because we only have an hour, but we will be introducing them throughout the show. But the first person I would like to introduce to today's show is our guest, Fleur. And Fleur, say hi.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too. Well, nice to meet you too. We work together all the time. So
in the same team even, so you know.
Yeah, Fleur, what is your job again? What do you do?
So Adam, I'm glad you asked because I do the exact same thing as you do, but then for Western Europe. So Adam and I are in the same team taking care of EMEA region in developer relations.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you sort of explained that because I actually didn't know. But
you learn something every day, Adam.
I know, isn't it wonderful? It's great, and I'm so glad that you're here. And so, Fleur, you are going to sort of keep me right today, basically. And actually, Fleur's going to be the main presenter today. I'm going to be behind the scenes, sort of controlling who's on, making screens bigger and smaller and things like that. But before we really go into the main topic of the day, and today that's all about Hacktoberfest, we're going to take a few minutes to talk about Microsoft Ignite, which happened last week. And for anyone that doesn't know, Microsoft Ignite is probably Microsoft's biggest tech event of the year, and it's some of you may have heard of Microsoft Build, which happened in May, and Microsoft Build is all about developers. Microsoft Ignite is an even bigger event. It's about everything technical. It covers Microsoft Azure, Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics, Microsoft everything, and it's just massive, hundreds and hundreds of events. So last week at this time, when we usually would have had Cloud Skills Show, Fleur and I were busy sort of sending messages, asking people what sort of breakfast they had, stuff like that, and maybe some more technical stuff as well.
And maybe some more related questions.
Yeah. Possibly, yeah. Anyway, so we are going to introduce in Pete and Jessica. And Fleur, we're going to say bye for now, but we're going to see you in just a few minutes. And Pete and Jess, welcome back. This is not, I centered myself a bit more. Forgot about this view. This is actually, also, I'm smaller than you two. I need to move closer.
I'm massive, which is funny because I'm the smallest out of the three of us, I think.
So welcome back to Cloud Skills. So you actually were both on in the second week of the last series, and we were talking about languages and frameworks and all about Microsoft Learn. And it was really great to actually have you on there. But for the people that didn't see that episode, maybe just quickly introduce yourselves again, and we'll start with Jess.
Hello, I'm Jess. I'm a developer at Experian. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I run DDD East Midlands Conference and co-organise .NET Knots meetup with Pete, who will introduce himself now.
Hi, I'm Pete. I'm a freelance software developer for my own company, PJG Creations. As Jess said, I co-organise .NET Knots, and I organise Knots IoT and co-organise Knots Dev Workshop, and anything IoT as well is for me.
That's amazing, and I think that we actually had some announcements about IoT at Ignite, didn't we? In fact, we had hundreds of announcements. It looks like. So, should we start off by talking about the book of news?
Yeah, I know. Me and Adam, when we were discussing this show, we started looking at the book of news and found it very difficult to try and narrow the news down to just a set of highlights that we were really interested in. And so it was almost like pin the tail on the donkey of some awesome announcements. And I know that I've chosen three, and Jess has chosen three. So go ahead, Jess, and talk about your three.
Oh, I thought you were going to go into it with your IoT-ness straight away. You caught me off guard. Well, as a .NET dev, and especially as a C# dev, I'm very excited about the .NET 5 release candidate that is now out. Fully out in November 10th, I believe. But it means we get to play around with that and C# 9 and have all the fun and features of it, which is very cool. There are numerous announcements from Microsoft Teams. I will try and share my screen now. We'll see how well this goes. Here we go. So there's Microsoft Team Displays, which is its own little unit, which gives you all the niceties of Teams, but external to your laptop. It can integrate with your laptop. It gives you your calendar features, your chatting features. It just looks pretty neat, especially if you like your devices. I know that Pete probably has plenty of devices in his house of varying sorts. Not just IoT, but everything else. So
I've got too many, Jess. It's terrible. That's why I have to face the camera this way.
Well, let's just hope that you're allowed to have this toy too, Pete. Get signed off on the family first.
Just don't tell anybody. It's fine. Nobody will know.
A little bit more up my street because I don't have Pete's budget for all of the fun toys, but there is plenty going on with the app itself as well. So we have the Together mode in app, which I know Adam's already played around with quite a bit because he keeps throwing our faces into meetings unexpectedly when we're picking our nose and doing various other things. This is great because it puts everybody's cameras into a setting, whether it's a conference room or an auditorium. If I scroll down, it might even have, there we go, a couple of little examples in this particular article. This is good because normally when you're in Teams, you either see 4 faces or you see whoever's speaking at the time, lots of initials down at the bottom, but it's quite hard to interact. This makes it a lot easier. So I'm quite excited for that. And the custom layout, which is useful for me and Pete to run meetups where we can actually have people in front of their presentations. So instead of either just seeing slide or the speaker, you can have the speaker in front of their slides showing very nicely. And finally, there is breakout rooms, which is also useful for particularly meetup owners because you can have smaller groups of people get together to do activities, talk on a topic, and then come back into the main room afterwards. So we'll be making plenty of use of this. Finally, the other thing that I want to talk about on the list of gigantic news, Adam's going to show off for us, which is Windows Virtual Desktop.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This is
we can see you twice, though.
Yeah, let's see. I want to show you this. So this is my iPad, and everyone that knows me knows I'm quite an Apple fan. And what I love on here, Windows. I don't know if you can still see that one, a bit funny, but what you have there is, I'm gonna take that off now because it's. There we go. Oh, stop talking! I'm getting echo. There we go. Go away. What I love about that actually is that I use an iPad quite a bit for personal use. I have a Windows laptop. I also have an Apple laptop. What I love about Windows Virtual Desktop is that I can actually get onto sort of my work system using the iPad without the iPad being on any sort of managed system. So the iPad's not a managed device, but I can log on in a protected mode. And what it gives me is a sort of virtual system. Sort of think back to the sort of thin clients in the past that people had where it would connect to a central server. Windows Virtual Desktop's a bit like that. As a large company can actually set up their environment, automatically loads all of the VMs. For the end user, it's really easy. They just use the remote desktop software and they've got stuff like whether that's their internal websites that you can't get from outside the company, whether it's, we have like a holiday booking tool in Microsoft that you need to VPN in for. So it's quite nice just to pop in for that. Obviously, most things are on Azure inside Microsoft. So the sort of list of things that you have to use this for is really, really low. But sometimes this is convenient because you want to have your personal device. You might be on holiday, you think, I really need to check into that thing. That's where WVD is useful. Another instance where it's been useful is where people have sort of been caught out by local lockdowns in the COVID times, and they've only had a personal device with them. This is a way companies have been able to deploy work environments and get people to use it wherever they are. So yeah, quite cool.
I imagine it's really useful with .NET Core being cross-compatible as well. So being able to work on a Mac for if you're using AWS and then skip onto Windows desktop must be super useful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm showing you on an iPad here, but that's just an example. You could use any device, a Linux device, all sorts of devices, and you get that sort of standardized Windows environment. And you can see that I've got like Paint open and stuff like this. But some people might actually do productive stuff with it.
Not just Solitaire and Minesweeper then.
No. Too much time on there. The website that's on screen tells you a bit more about that as well.
And Pete, you've got all the world of IoT to tell us about.
I've got minus 1 minute to do this in because we're already behind. So how bad are we? We'll have to speed up. One of the things that piqued my interest was the Azure VMware solution that they announced, which I think is really handy. But there's so many people that are just sitting there with Azure VMware on their own servers on-prem, and to be able to lift that up and stick it into Azure. And not only that, once you've got it there, then you can interface out to the other Azure services that are out there. So I mean, you can hook it up to blob storage or whatever, and I think that's really powerful. But as soon as somebody mentioned space in one of the announcements, Azure Orbital, I thought that was so cool. And you can essentially rent space in a ground station to be able to communicate with satellites. And it used to be that it used to cost an arm and a leg to send things up to space, but a couple of $1,000 now, and you can send small satellites up there. But to getting the infrastructure right to be able to communicate with them is really difficult, and Microsoft has spotted that and given everybody a facility to be able to rent a little bit of time on a ground station to do comms that way. So I think that's a really good idea. And of course, being as I'm an IoT geek, all of the IoT announcements, and there were so many of them. But the device certification, I think, is a bit of a game changer for device manufacturers to be able to go through. There's 3 at the moment and 4 coming certifications that you can apply to your devices. And there's a device certification on its own that means that it can connect to the Azure DPS, device provisioning service, and onto an IoT hub. And then there's the plug and play certification as well. That means that you've got that digital twin language right on your device, and then you can plug that into things like IoT Central. And then there's edge certifications as well to make sure that your IoT edge device can run the edge runtime and things as well. So to be able to get those certifications right means that these device manufacturers can slap a label on it, and you can pick it up as a consumer and you know it's just going to work. So you're going to get over that initial hump of stuff not working. And thanks to Adam for showing. I didn't have to share my screen, so I didn't have to break the entire screen stream to show that.
I didn't want to load this page. That's why it was so late in appearing.
Yeah, it was slow for me as well. So I'm glad it was slow for you too. That's my wrap up in 2 minutes. Look, see, I was fast.
And I think I didn't bring up there's the .NET 5 announcement as well that Jessica, you briefly mentioned. Actually, this isn't the prettiest web page. It is a lot of text, but not pretty for people like me. But it's a really good read if you are a .NET developer. If I just make that, hopefully the screen is big enough for people to see. But hopefully we will really have that in general availability in November. I think it is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can run it on a Raspberry Pi as well, by the way. So go ahead and do that. Get that in
there. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, we better not talk about Ignite anymore, because we promised this was mostly about Hacktoberfest, but we will be bringing you back in just a few minutes to talk about what's going on in Nottingham. So I'm going to introduce Flo back in, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Absolutely, and I'll make a point of unmuting myself, unlike some other people on this call. So welcome back, and I have the pleasure to introduce Tanya Allard, who is a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, and she wrote a really powerful blog post about getting started in open source, and so who better to talk to when it's about Hacktoberfest and open source than Tanya. Hey, Tanya.
Hi,
How are
I
you today?
unmuted myself again. Yes.
We're doing
I'm good.
so
I'm good. How are
well.
you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just really excited because it's the 1st of October, so it's
Oh, I
Hacktoberfest,
know.
right?
I know.
So for the people joining us today, Hacktoberfest is a annual celebration of open source, of people contributing to open source. And we want to be talking about that today, especially when it's your first time joining Hacktoberfest or your first time working on open source projects. So Hacktoberfest, how does it work, Tanya? Tell us.
Oh, I love Hacktoberfest. So Hacktoberfest, as you've already mentioned, is a great opportunity for folks to contribute to open source and basically give back to the projects that you love and use on a day-to-day basis. And all you have to do is go to the Hacktoberfest website now, register. You have to link your GitHub account. And basically you can find any issue, any any item from any open source project that is looking for help, create a contribution and send a pull request. At the end of the month, if you have sent 4 pull requests, note I use the word send. They don't have to be merged or approved. You will get some special goodies. I think Flor is actually wearing not
I'm
last
wearing
year. The
absolutely
2 years
no,
back.
2018, the
Yeah.
2018 version, and I think some other people on the show are wearing the 2019 version. But indeed, yeah, you can get a T-shirt. But this year they have a sustainable option as well, where you can plant a tree instead. So that's interesting.
That's
I
right.
think.
That's right.
I'm not decided yet what I'll be doing because honestly, the shirts are really pretty, but I also really appreciate the sustainable alternative.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting. And one of the nice things I like about Hacktoberfest is that I've seen over the years more and more folks adding non-coding issues for Hacktoberfest. And I think that is incredible because there is so many ways in which you can contribute to open source. The most obvious is contributing code, but writing documentation, helping folks with design. If you're a designer, there are a lot of open source projects out there that don't have a logo or would like a refresh or need some accessibility and UX guidance. So there are many, many ways and many layers in which you can get involved. And it's nice to see that projects are getting this out and making them more visible for folks out there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you say this. So one thing that we're organizing in Western Europe, but actually it's global nowadays, right? Because we're all doing it from our couch or our workroom anyway.
Yeah.
We're organizing contributing.today, that's the website, and it's a meetup. It's a sort of like a kickoff event for Hacktoberfest, helping people to get their first PRs in, but also just figuring out what kind of projects they would want to contribute to during the month of October. And we've conducted a couple of interviews with open source maintainers and core contributors. And actually the thing that they mention most, that they need help with most, is really like people looking at documentation, trying out tutorials, see if that actually works for them. And then also indeed like adding logos or visual assets is something that is not the core capabilities of your regular open source maintainer. And they ask for help with those kind of issues as well.
Right, that's correct. I think also when you get started contributing to a project, especially if you recently have onboarded yourself to a project, you have a very nice set of new eyes that the maintainers don't have because they are involved in the nitty-gritty details of the project. So if you can come on with a new perspective, and there is something in the documentation that you're like, this really doesn't make sense, or I struggle so much, these instructions are outdated. All of that feedback and all of those improvements are massively helpful because that means that you're knocking those barriers off for other people that are going to be onboarding soon or want to use this new library or project.
Yeah, and so for people, or maybe first from the maintainer side, if they want to get involved with Hacktoberfest, what do you suggest they do just before? Well, actually, well, they can still do it during the month of October, right? But how do you make your project more accessible or discoverable or welcome to newcomers to open source?
Right. I think there are many, many ways. And actually, I am writing a blog post about how to make your open source project a bit more contributor friendly. But some of the things is if you have your project on GitHub or GitLab, well, GitHub, we're focusing this for Hacktoberfest, use tags. There are some tags that are, for example, beginners friendly or first time users, first time contributors, help wanted. Make sure that you're using those tags because there are a lot of aggregators, not only the Hacktoberfest has its special tag that will pull your repo and your issues through their aggregator. But there is so many aggregators out there that look for these special tags so that folks that are looking to make their first time contribution to open source can pick and choose. So that is super, super essential. Then as a maintainer, if you want to make your project more welcoming and accessible, make sure as well that there is a code of conduct and that you're enforcing it. Sometimes if you don't feel like you are capable of enforcing code of conduct, reach out to other folks in your community. I've seen a lot of projects that have also an external code of conduct enforcer for those cases in which there might be a conflict of interest or things of the such. And also have a clear contribution guideline or a clear contribution set of rules on if you have that you specify where folks can get involved if they want to contribute something that is not code, for example, and want to organize an event or help with a sprint. Make sure that you have ways for them to communicate with you, that you have your development guidelines on like how do they set up their development environment? How do they send up a pull request? How do they ask for help if they get stuck? And if you have, I don't know, if you follow some standards or you have special denotations on how they should label their pull requests, make sure that all of that is there and that
Absolutely.
all of the point of contacts are always visible.
Yeah, those conventions, I feel, naming conventions are super important to share. Not that that's an unwritten rule, but that people can actually find it. That's one of the that's the thing that you can do to make it more contributor friendly. That's wonderful. And for you as an open source contributor, what are the things that you're specifically looking for before you get involved in a project?
So it's also this kind of checks that I look at. Again, I mentioned the code of conduct because that gives me the code of conduct and enforcement guidelines or processes to report if there is any violation. Because that gives me at least an indication that the maintainers are interested in making it a welcoming and safe space for all of us. Also, I am a bit picky, and I make sure that the README is a good README because that is the place where I'm going to go to understand how the project is used, how I can contribute, how I can reach out to the developers, and make sure that it actually has a license because there are a lot of folks that think that because they put their code out there on GitHub, it's open source. And if it's just out there without a license, it's in a very weird limbo where the code is public, but people don't know how to use, like what they're allowed to do with your code. So if something is missing a license, I just don't touch that because I don't know what can happen. And again, make sure I sometimes go through the issues and other pull requests that folks have submitted to make sure that, I don't know, there is conversation if they are requesting help from the maintainers or from other contributors, that there is an open discussion channel.
Yeah, I
Because
don't know
that
about
means,
you, but I also look at the number of pull requests that are still open and to see if there is any movement on there,
yeah,
and like the language used when people are discussing pull requests, and also when the last merges have been, right? Because if I don't see much activity, I feel like
right.
my pull request might sit there idle for the longest time, and that's not the contribution that you're looking to make.
Yeah. And that happens there are many reasons why a pull request might have been open for a year or so. But if it's because nobody actually ever had a look at it, not even to say, well, this pull request doesn't align with the roadmap, or somebody else implemented it, if it was just completely ignored, I always feel like that's going to happen to my pull request. And
Oh no.
yeah, and that deters me a bit.
Yeah. What moves you actually to work on open source? Like what do you get from it? Maybe people that are still on the fence, like why would they even get involved with open source?
I love open source. One of the reasons is because the community is amazing. Early on in my career, I found the open source community, and I've been lucky enough to have made a bunch of really, really good friends. But it also has opened me a lot of opportunities. I think the fact that I work as a developer advocate has been massively influenced, and the door was basically opened thanks to my involvement with the open source community, all of my involvement with different projects, the fact that I'm active in the community. And I feel like I get so much from open source that like I try to give as much as possible back. And it feels nice. It feels nice knowing it. Like that is a completely selfish reason. But knowing that you're doing something for your community to try either to make it more sustainable or more inclusive or more accessible, it also gives me a bit of personal gratification.
Absolutely. I mean, I recognize that. I got started with open source just because I learned how to program from the Rails Girls guides, and those are open source entirely. And so I found a little typo, and when I pointed it out to my mentor back then, they were like, "You can just fix it. It's open source." And so that was my first pull request, I think, fixing a typo in the Rails Girls guides, and that felt so good, right? Because now nobody will have to face that one type. I mean, it's nothing, but it felt really good, and that's how I get started. Do you have a similar starter story?
I can't even remember how I got started with open source. No, I have no idea how I got started, but like also one of my motivations is when I'm going through a tutorial or through the instructions to get started with something, if I just hit a blocker and I can't get things working because the instructions are not clear or outdated, like if I fix it, I'm going to save at least one person's pain of going down this road. So I'm just going to do it. If I can't do it, I'm sure someone else will benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Yeah, I can only recommend people to check out your blog post. I think it's wonderful for both people getting started with open source, but also for project maintainers. And that's the one coming up, right? So I'm looking forward to that one as well. I think we're joined by two of our other guests today to talk about a bit more about what kind of events are coming up. Do you have an event to plug as well, Tanya?
Well, I am running a series of mentored sprints throughout October and November. We're still finalizing the details. So we are actually running an extended Hacktoberfest. And I'm going to be posting that obviously on Twitter and on mentor-sprints.dev if you want to participate. We prioritize this for folks from underrepresented backgrounds in our community. So if you've always wanted to get started with open source but have been a bit like on the fence, these are friendly and safe spaces for all of you.
Wonderful. And we're joined by Pete and Jess. Happy that you're back. But
Hi.
also Jamie and Anna. Anna and Jamie, could you introduce yourself? Maybe Anna can start.
Hi, yes, my name's Anna. I'm a senior developer at the DVSA, which is part of the Department for Transport in the UK government. So I look after the MOT project, which people in the UK will know about. I've got involved with open source. I started at uni. I've learned so much, and through contributing to Hacktoberfest and things like that, it really gave me an opportunity to join in, which was just amazing and mind-blowing for me. And I'm lucky enough at work that we do open source work as well, which means a lot to me.
Wonderful. And Jamie?
Hi, I'm James Hannah. I'm a senior software engineer. Up until this week, I've been working on Capital One's open banking platform, which is giving customers access to their data. And as of next week, I'm going to be starting to look at how we get customers onboarded and improve that process.
Great. And what are you all planning for this wonderful time of year?
I'll kick that off, shall I?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Jess, it looked like you were going to step in.
I was only going to say that there's been a lot of different routes. So Nottingham has an amazing community. Pete and I have started a repo for .NET Nots. Our website definitely needs a redo and a reskin. So we've started up an open source repo, which is building the website in Blazor. We have accessibility issues. We have design issues. We have so many issues that I can't even think of all of them. So please do contribute to that. There's also the Microsoft open source website, which is very cool. I'll just quickly share that, which has a number of different issues that you can contribute to, so you can explore the projects. And they have the tags that you were already talking about, Flor, with like the difficulty, which projects they're belonging to, whether they're for Hacktoberfest or just an ongoing issue that's there, etc. So if you want to get involved in Microsoft, that's very cool. My very first pull request was to a Microsoft documentation, funnily enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good story.
It was a long time ago, but I found a typo just like you did. So you can take part in that way too. But Jamie and Anna have been amazing for Nottingham in terms of Hacktoberfest and open source in general. They've hosted events which have helped people with their first PRs. They've just done loads. So I'll hand over to Anna and Jamie to explain a bit more about what they do.
Oh, thanks, Jess. Well, I first started looking at Hacktoberfest when I was trying to do more open source contributions. When I went back to uni to do a master's in computer science, I actually career changed. And contributing to stuff that I used, it kind of blew my mind. And as a woman in tech, you're not always seeing your voice heard in things. And I think it was a bit of an opportunity to have an opinion about things and be able to get stuck in and see what's going on. And it was really cool. And I met Jamie had contributed the year. You started the year before I did, didn't you, Jamie?
Yeah, I think I've got one more t-shirt, which is now a lot more faded.
T-shirt envy.
I definitely remember at university having the university society websites that I could contribute to as well. And that made it really easy to feel like I could contribute because I was already part of that community. And I remember the next year when I'd left uni, it becoming like the 1st of October and just being so overwhelmed with all the issues, all the repos. I couldn't even understand what the issue was, never mind try and fix it. And at this point I was working as a developer and I was huge imposter syndrome and just didn't understand anything. It was really, really hard. And I actually found a project from a woman looking at women in tech events that she wanted something changed. And it was really simple and really small. And I felt like I was allowed to contribute to that. And that broke the floodgates a little bit and gave me the confidence to say, oh, it is okay. You can just rock up to this random project and be like, hey, I want to do this. And they're all like, oh, that's great. You should, you can. We really like that. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so feeling like that, me and Jamie really wanted to help other people in the community who'd also felt like that. People maybe from minority background or first time coding, first time developers, workshops, and we set up some projects that would help them. So we did a website called We Built This for Hacktoberfest, and it was for people to contribute to. Just we kind of only accepted one, maybe two pull requests, depending who it was, from people who had never contributed before. And we built this static website all together And it was funny, Flora and Tanya, you talking about design inputs. We had someone design our favicon, and it was such a cool little favicon. It's like a little pumpkin with curly brackets. It's amazing. So we got some really cool stuff, and the whole like site design is just incredible. It's amazing. It's from one of our community members, and that was so cool.
Very cool. What are some of the events that are coming up that people can just check into, participate in, and get some help and some community around them when they're working on their first open source contribution? So
I've recently seen there's a website called raise.dev. So they've got a Hacktoberfest session. I think it's 3 times a day through the whole month. And they're doing a live stream where people can just drop in and get a hand with their Hacktoberfest contributions. So they're going to have people regularly there to just support people, because generally you'd hopefully be able to do that in person, because there are loads of events running through Hacktoberfest that are all linked on the website. But when it's in person, it is a little bit easier from my experience. You don't quite get that now. But having things like this and having some of the online events, you can just drop in, get some help from someone, give you that little bit of extra confidence, and then that'll propel you through the rest of the month.
You've been running some events yourself as well, Jamie, haven't you, with Homebrew website?
I have, yes. So last night was actually the first event, which was the prequel to Hacktoberfest. And I've got 2 other sessions coming up this month, where people can drop in, spend a bit of time working on the Hacktoberfest contributions, and just give people a space to get some help, get some time to work on their projects. Yeah.
We also have quite an active Slack channel on our Tech Nottingham Slack community, and have that open. Obviously, well, it's open all year round, but obviously it's busiest now. And that's quite busy at the moment. People chatting, people talking, seeing what's going on, helping people with issues or finding issues and things like that. And I think that's quite nice, because now we're in this remote land. People are working at different times and they can just drop in and drop out a little bit. And there's less pressure to be on maybe a video call, which is sometimes a little bit hard, especially if you've been at work all day. So I'm looking forward to seeing that develop a little bit more. So that's on technottingham.com.
That Slack group is open to everyone in the UK, by the way. There's a couple of thousand of developers, I think, on there now. So Don't feel you have to be in part of Nottingham. There are people from all over the UK and are chatting away. Is there any resources that you would recommend, Anna?
Yes, I would recommend your blog post, actually, Jess.
That wasn't intentional.
Where your host, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good post. I really love it because it covers kind of all of the things. It is quite intimidating, I found, when I started contributing to open source. There's a lot of stuff you have to read, or a lot of things maybe that is assumed knowledge, and the lingo, like a pull request, what even is that? Or branches? It's nothing to do with trees. So I think it's really great to have this high level overview of someone who may not have used Git or not used it a lot. And actually one of our events last year, at your event actually, Jess, another one for you, someone was able to contribute on their phone on GitHub, which was really cool. So people can contribute to documentation and things like that. I'd probably say code was harder on your phone, but if you want to do it, go for it. I think, Jamie, did you have some good you had some good resources lined up as well?
I do. I can't seem to find my links to them though.
Oh, it's at raise.dev. I know it was one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Raise.dev, also shameless plug. I'll be on Tuesday to help people with their open source contributions. I'm really much looking forward. I feel kind of like I'll be a rubber duck on the show, so people will just, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this." I'm like, yes, do it. I feel like that's my main job on the show.
That's such a good job.
Sorry, go on. Obviously, one of the main places to go is the Hacktoberfest website, and you can go on there, and there's so much that you can find out on that about how to contribute and what the events are that are available to people, and what the swag may or may not be, if that's what's driving you to do it. But hopefully, as Tanya said, the community is one of the main drivers for this. And that, I mean, again, the Tech Nottingham community is why I got into open source in the small way that I'm involved, and going to events like Anna and Jamie and Jess run really do help. And obviously now we're virtual, but there's so much out there to help you get involved.
If you're a first-time developer as well, putting down what contributions you've done to relatively well-known repos is really good for your CV. If you don't have any actual experience in a company, at least you've been working with a team and done a pull request to a project that everyone uses. So I can't recommend highly do enough.
Exactly. You need so many skills, right, to participate in an open source project. There is a lot of communication involved as well. So that's an interesting tidbit as well. I really like the Hacktoberfest website in a way also that they highlight a couple of projects that are all around sort of Hacktober or around COVID relief projects. So if that's your jam, you could also get involved in those. Very cool. What are the projects that you will be contributing to yourself? Maybe we do like the whole round and start with Pete again.
Clearly, the .NET Knots.
Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. I like the fact that you can, as Jess said, that her first contribution was to the Microsoft Docs. Microsoft, all of that is done in the public now, so you can contribute to the Docs or .NET 5 even, or WPF or any of those different platforms now are open source and on GitHub. So there's issues all over the place that you can contribute to, and go and find them.
Absolutely. Jess?
I think I'll probably be spending my time managing the open source repos for DDD, East Midlands, and .NET Knots. Be kind to the people who are managing those repos, because we are going to have an influx of PRs over October, and most of us are doing it outside our day job. So please be kind to the people who are maintaining these things and be patient. But yeah, unfortunately, I think that's going to take up most of my time.
You say unfortunate like it's a bad thing.
I want the t-shirt.
Unfortunate from her employer's point of view, maybe.
I do it all outside work. Experience can't tell me off.
Jamie and Anna, what are some of the contributions that you're looking to get in?
So I'm quite involved in the indie web community, which is all about owning your data and building tools for yourself. And there are a number of shared tools that I use as part of that. There are definitely things that I would like in them. So I'm going to talk to some of the maintainers and see if I can negotiate to raise some contributions instead of just dropping them with a 300 line or 300 file change. I'll give them a bit of heads up. Yeah.
Very cool. Anna?
So I'm really looking forward to contributing to where I work. I've not worked there very long. I'm really excited and proud that we do work out in the open, because we're the government. We really strongly believe in open data, open code, open source. So I've been having a little snoop round at some of the government digital services repos and seeing what needs work. I'm excited to get stuck in on them. And also we use some AWS tooling as well, and I'd like to help support that, because we do consume it and we don't pay for that, and it's really great to give back. So this will hopefully give me the kick I needed to actually contribute and do it, not just think about it.
What about you, Flo? What will you be contributing to?
Well, there's this German initiative called Speakerin, which is like focusing on people from underrepresented genders to get them on stage. And they have a couple of projects, and I know that the maintainers or the core contributors don't have as much time as they maybe used to have. And so I'm looking forward to contributing to a couple of those. And also going through documentation of a couple of projects that I use on a daily basis and see if we can make their documentation a bit more inclusive and a bit more accessible.
Sounds amazing.
Yes. Too many projects, too little time.
Bye social life. This is it now.
well, if this is your social life, that's good as well. No.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So we're joined by Paul and Craig. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What are you planning for Hacktoberfest? Starting with Craig.
Yeah. My name's Craig Porteous. I'm a senior data engineer with Agreco and a data platform MVP. I've worked with data for about 13 years now, and I'm the founder of Data Scotland. Over to you, Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Broadbith. Like Craig, I'm based in Scotland and I'm a freelancer, mainly around operations, sysadmin type roles. I'm an MVP for Cloud and Data Center. I'm an NCT as well. And for Hacktoberfest this year, I'll be just trying to contribute to as many projects as I can. And I'm the maintainer of a couple of projects, so just trying to keep them going.
That's great. What type of projects are you a maintainer of?
They're PowerShell-based projects. So one is Box Starter for one of my clients, which is Chocolatey, and there's a C Choco PowerShell DS0 source as well. So I'm the maintainer of both of them, and my own. Like everybody else, we've got our own little projects. We've got
Little libraries.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got them to maintain as well.
Very cool. And you're organizing an event this year all around open source and Hacktoberfest. Do you want to, tell the little viewers at home about this?
Yes, we are. I'll jump in there, Paul. This will be the third year that Paul and I have organised a Hacktoberfest event.
Wow.
And we normally do it face-to-face. Paul very kindly speaks for the majority of the session that we do, and he does an introduction to Git, which is fantastic. But this year, I think we're actually at an advantage with it being virtual. We're going to do it all through Microsoft Teams, and it means we can have people enjoying sessions. We've got 3 speakers that are talking. We've got Brett Miller, Chrissy Lemaire, who's a GitHub star, and Gary Ewan Park, who's from Scotland as well. And it means that people can jump into these sessions, they can learn something about Git, they can learn something about Hacktoberfest, and people who are maybe, they know that kind of information, or this isn't their first Hacktoberfest, will have other channels that they can contribute to, that they can share their knowledge and content and things like that. So I think it actually works in our favour this year, being virtual, that we can have many different streams for collaboration.
Right, where people otherwise might feel left out when it's the beginner session. And Paul, how do you even go about introducing Git to people? Where do you start?
Well, you could start at the beginning. Introducing Git to people, I think Git can be very, very complicated. It's like any tool. You can go really deep dive into it, but for people who want to get involved in their, Hacktoberfest, so it's maybe their first PR, you're really looking to explain the basics, branches, how to do a pull request, the different types of branches you've got there, and commits and that kind of thing, just to give them a basic understanding. And then when we do the talk, we kind of take people through how to do that first PR as well. So it's really about holding their hand a little bit and then letting them see that it's actually not that difficult after all. And also there are lots and lots of resources out there as well that helps them go through the complicated parts. So it seems to work really well.
Wonderful. I'd love to ask you about your first, your first open source moment as well. As we heard from some of the other guests as well. I'm very curious how you first got started with open source. Maybe Greg can start again.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Certainly, it's an interesting one. It was actually a blog post of Paul's that he was talking about Hacktoberfest, and I was reading through it, going, "This sounds pretty interesting." And like anybody, you kind of get that imposter syndrome of, "Oh, I don't think there's anything I can contribute." And he mentioned at the end that you got a free T-shirt, and I was like, "Sold." So immediately kind of jumped in, and Paul kind of knowing his way around these kind of projects helped me kind of get started with the first one, and was basically saying what a lot of other people have had the same experience, where it's adding to documentation or it's fixing some errors in documentation. And I think my first Hacktoberfest, I contributed to some Microsoft documentation, and there was a PowerShell module for reporting services where I'd added a couple of examples to the help, which I found was lacking. And when I'd done it, I was like, that's amazing. Like, now someone else can have those examples and they don't need to spin their wheels checking forums on what syntax to use.
Wow, that's wonderful. And Paul?
My first pull request, I suppose, it was actually for Chocolatey. It was a particular part of PowerShell, and I can't remember the specifics, but it failed on my system. So that's when I actually started digging in. How do I contribute back? How do I fix this? And because Chocolatey is very, very much encourages people with open source, there was some documentation around about that. We've talked about the kind of contributors docs and those kind of things earlier on. So I just went through the process. And Rob Reynolds, the founder of Chocolatey, actually helped me go through through it because it started getting a little bit complicated for me being the first one. But yeah, that I think demonstrates how the open source community is so friendly as well, and encourages people along. So it's not like you're left on your own. So that was a really positive experience for me.
Yeah. Look at this. We have your event page up.
There it is, yeah.
Yes. Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so jump in, log in and register with the event. As everyone said, Hacktoberfest runs for the full month. You can register, you don't need to go to any events, but please come to ours. We will help you get started. If you already know what you're doing, you can help us. But one of the important things is that with the Hacktoberfest event, we've opened it up, the Microsoft Teams team, we've opened it up for the full month. So even though the event isn't till the 10th of October at 12 p.m., you can jump in at any point and discuss problems, discuss repos and projects. We've already put a bunch of links in here, and I've been making note of all the ones from today to add in to help people get started with their first pull request, or even to find some issues that people want contributed to.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, it's the third time. If you ran this for 3 years already, what are some of like the ways that you see that you can really inspire people to start contributing to open source, or what are like some of the most beautiful anecdotes from these getting together and trying this for the first time?
Paul, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. I'll try and get. Oh, there we go.
The storyteller.
For me, coming from that operations background, I think a lot of IT people, we live in a little bit of a bubble. We work with open source all the time. We contribute to projects, but trying to explain that to people who don't live in that same sort of bubble can be difficult. So last year we had a really good turnout for our event, and we had people from that operations background who'd never done anything open source. You get a little bit internally, but not really contributing to projects, and getting them for the first time to do that pull request and then actually asking questions was, for me, the great thing about it, because I love being able to explain that to people who I worked with, prior to getting involved in all the open source, because they're still outside that bubble. So getting them to actually get that light bulb moment is fantastic. So for me, the whole thing about that was great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to add to what you're saying there, Paul, it's certainly in the data community or data in general, like we don't use a lot of the source control tools, or haven't until the last maybe 5 years or so. So sometimes it's a bit more of a higher kind of point of entry there, but there's a few very big community projects, tools like DBA tools, where there's quite a few people in the community contribute to that, a lot of people actually. And it's those kind of things, if you can make it relevant to people, if you can make it relevant to the kind of tools they want to use or that they can use in their organization, then they bring their own expertise to be able to improve it and add to it and add functionality and things. So it's kind of about inspiring it, going, this isn't just all this code over here that you never normally use. This is relevant to you. You can contribute to it, whether it's design or PowerShell or C# or even just documentation. Everybody hates documentation.
I love documentation. Love it. And I think it's a wonderful way for a lot of people to get started, just because they will go through the documentation just to get started with a project, right? Yeah. And you'll come across stuff, and I think it's mentioned. I mean, it's mentioned on the show already. Like, you'll as a maintainer, I think you assume a lot of knowledge, and that people are on the same level as you are. But people come from very different backgrounds or environments, and they need to to get started. I think there's a lot more information that people need, and so if anybody can help work on that. And I love the link that is on screen right now. It's actually a great resource by GitHub, both targeted at contributors but also at maintainers, how to make your project more welcoming to new people, but also for contributors or people thinking about getting involved in open source. How do we even pick a project? Like, how do I go about finding a project that will need my skills and my contributions and is looking forward to having me in their communities?
Yeah. I know, absolutely. I think, and we've talked about documentation as well, that we, from an operations background, I live on documentation. Everything has to be documented. So when I see a project that has, a step that's missing or a bit there, I am OCD. I have to be on that. So, and that's really important for other people as well, because you're not fixing it for yourself. You're fixing it for everybody else as well. Who's come across that as well. So, yeah, the documentation's definitely one of the most important things.
Absolutely, and I think erring on the side of more verbose documentation is always better than less, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to your event as well. How do I make sure that I go to all of the things? I don't even know and get my contributions in. Yeah. So I think one of the things maybe people ask, I just wanted to stress, sign up for Hacktoberfest so that your pull requests are counted, right? Find projects that you're interested in. And all of the projects that are on GitHub and are public, those are the projects that take part in Hacktoberfest, whether they like it or not, I guess. There's, of course, some of the projects are more optimized for it, and they will have triaged their issues before and maybe labeled them with Hacktoberfest or first contribution friendly. But in fact, everybody can contribute to any public repository on GitHub. And we have everyone back.
It's like magic.
Yes. It's almost like someone is behind the scenes making sure that everybody's here. Do we want to end on with sort of last remarks and maybe last plug for all of the events and activities that are running this month? And starting with, I love that. Yeah, yes, because I say so, right? Maybe we can start with Pete and we go the full round.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I mentioned contributing to the docs, and it was mentioned in that previous piece as well as there's plenty of workshops and tutorials out there on the Microsoft website. And I've been doing a little bit of twitching recently, and I'm not brave enough to do my own code on there, but I have been following along with some of the workshops, and I've spotted things that aren't right or don't work quite right. And during the stream, I've been going in and making PRs to fix that. And they're very, very good, very open. And receptive to changes and stuff like that. So that's a really good place to start. And obviously the .NET Notes website. That's 3 times I've mentioned that now. Go, contribute.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. The main thing I want to say is just get involved, is just contribute. And even there's repos out there that will go through step by step on how to do it, even if it's just adding to that repo as a test to kind of get into the flow of using Git and doing a pull request. I believe that they also count towards your 4 for October to get the t-shirt or plant a tree. So yeah, get involved is the main thing.
Very cool.
I would echo that. I've just checked a few of the notifications coming up on GitHub, and we've had issues raised about scanning the repositories with Lighthouse and Pally. We've had someone create a Pride banner for our website, which I think is incredibly cool. So we don't think of everything. If you see something that you think is missing, raise an issue, do the pull request yourself. It would be great to see what you come up with.
Awesome.
One thing I wanted to say, and it was mentioned earlier again, is this is a great thing for your career. So, we're all helping out open source, and these, all the products that we use in our phones and our machines, computers, all are based somewhere on open source software. So you're helping change all of that. And it is a real boon to your career to add that onto your CV. So, be selfish as well. It's helping you while it's helping others.
That's wonderful. Jamie, Anna, do you want to do a last plug?
One thing I was going to say is Hacktoberfest and open source isn't just for 1 month of the year. Try and remember. And I make this mistake every year that I do a lot of contributions over Hacktoberfest, and then my GitHub commit graph is very, very empty. Just try and use it as a way to help you get stuck into open source, giving you that little nudge that when you see things throughout the year, you can just raise that PR, you can help someone else's project out.
Yeah, hopefully it's sticky enough for you to really commit to a project for a longer term. And that pun was totally intended.
My final thought would just be, don't struggle alone, ask for help. There's so many communities out there. There's the community that we're part of. There's this community here. There are so many people who want to help. Don't struggle. Don't just abandon it. Do it. You can do it. I believe in you.
Tanya, last words. You're muted.
Tanya.
I hate to be the person.
Oh, I didn't know them. No, it's okay. I do that all the time as well. Final remarks, open source is for everyone. You always have something to contribute, and maintainers and other contributors are always there to help you. So ask questions, ask a lot of questions.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Adam, for the opportunity to be your lovely co-host today.
Thank you. No, you were amazing. I'm thinking, crikey, I'm going to have to get a co-host every week now. I'm going to do this again soon. So Flo, you're actually preparing for another event right now as well, aren't you?
I am.
Literally on set.
Yes, I am. They're building up around me, so I hope that didn't echo through too much. But yeah, we're having a conference tomorrow. Yeah, on location this time.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, before we say thanks to everyone, I just want to just make a couple of quick announcements. So first of all, we actually have another event today. So we actually have a special event, which is later on at 6 p.m. UK time. That's 1 o'clock on the East Coast of the US. 10:30 p.m. in India, and you can check on the website. It tells you all the other times. There they are. 7 p.m. in Central Europe. So this is an event called Become an AI Edge Engineer with Microsoft Learn and University of Oxford. So we have actually collaborated with University of Oxford for many years now. My wonderful colleague Amy Boyd, who is a cloud advocate, has been working with them. Earlier this year, we launched the AI Edge Engineer Learning Path on Microsoft Learn. So you can anyone can do some of this course for free. And we're also going to meet the folks from Oxford University that actually built it and actually have the full length course. So you can see it on the website. You can register for that. You can also watch. It's going to be on Learn TV. And we've got some wonderful speakers, Ajit, who is the course director, Aisha, who is one of the tutors, and we're going to meet Marina and Robert, who are actually, they're former students, they're alumni of that course now, and they're going to talk about how it's helped them. So join us again in just a few hours for that. It's very exciting. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone that's been on today. This is a record for us, 9 people. As you can see, the screen doesn't really fit many more people on than that. So getting ever bigger, like Microsoft Teams, we're soon going to be able to get 49 on, maybe, I don't know. But thank you. It's been great to hear about Hacktoberfest actually in different parts of the UK and globally. And obviously Floor is joining us from the Netherlands. So, it's great to have an international perspective. This is a special year. Although there are disadvantages to being online, there are advantages. And that means that anyone can join any Hacktoberfest event wherever they are. I will put the website up again. I'm sorry, Tanya, for covering up your head there. But, do check out the website. You're just going to stand up like that. So if you search for Hacktoberfest, you'll sure find it as well. And be sure to also check the page later. It will be updated tonight, today's links. I'm sorry, I'm covering 2 faces now. But we will have all of the URLs from today. I know there's been so many of them that I can't bring them up on screen again. But thank you for everyone for sharing their experiences. I hope that we'll see you again on Cloud Skills Show soon. And I think with that, we are going to say goodbye. I know our friends on Learn TV have already left us. They have a strict cut-off, but we did continue on our other platforms. So we will see you again soon. We'll see you in a few hours for the AI event and next week at this time for another Cloud Skills Show. Thanks very much for joining.
Thanks.
Bye.
you.